Hello and welcome, guys. This is Crimson Glory, and today I thought I'd change things up a little bit. And I thought what I would do is do a quick walk cycle tutorial. Now, this is just going to be a very simple walk cycle, and it's going to majorly just focus on 3D animation, but there are a few little tips and tidbits that may actually be of use to some of you who are working in different mediums, whether it be stop motion or 2D animation. So what I've got here is my skeleton rig. You may have seen him before in one of my other shorts. And he's a pretty simple rig, but he'll suffice for this tutorial. Before we get started, though, I want to talk about a couple of key things, one of which is going to be IK and FK controls. Now, when it comes to animating a walk cycle, you're going to want to usually set your legs here to be controlled via IK and your arms to be set via FK. Now, what exactly does that even mean? Well, as you can see here in the arms, these are FK controls. And what that basically means is forward kinematics. That means that the entire motion of this joint chain of controls is controlled at the very base of this control setup, and it goes down throughout the rest of it. Now that means anytime I move the shoulder, the rest of the arm will move, and then if I go down on the chain and just do the elbow, it moves accordingly, but nothing further up the chain can move, and so on and so forth. Now that's all cool, but you also have inverse kinematics, which you can see here on the legs. Now, inverse kinematics is actually the opposite of forward kinematics. That's why it's called inverse. And that's when the movement of any particular joint setup is controlled from the end of the control system rather than the beginning. So as I move the foot, the rest of the leg moves in turn. Now, with most rigs, they have a switch where you can switch between FK and IK controls. And with a simple walk cycle, what you'll want to do is have your legs set to IK, because the majority of your movements are going to be made via the foot. That's what's driving most of the motion of your legs as you're walking around. Whereas your arms, you're going to want everything to be in FK, because most of the motion is being driven via your shoulder and down. Now, let's go ahead and get started. What we'll do for the walk cycle is we're going to start things off mid-gait. That's when one leg is far out front and the other leg is far behind. And the reason we're going to do this is usually because it's the most easy to visualize from a visual standpoint. It's pretty simple to kind of imagine yourself in the middle of a walk. Now, one of the most important things to note about animating anything, usually it's best to start from the core of the body and work your way out. For a walk, I usually like to start with the main body control, and then the legs and the hips, and then I'll work my way out. So for the mid-gait, what you'll find is your body actually bobs quite a lot when you're walking up and down. And mid-gait is actually going to be where your body is actually kind of at its lowest here. So we'll move our body down just a tad bit. And what we'll also do is we'll decide which leg we want to move forward. I'm going to go with the right leg forward and the left leg back. But before we move those into position, what I want to do is first rotate the pelvis. Because as you're walking, your pelvis actually rotates in line with whichever leg is moving forward and backwards. So since we want the right leg to move forward, what we'll do is rotate the pelvis in a way so that its right side is facing forward and that its left side is facing backwards. That's good. Then we're going to want to move our right foot forward and our left foot back. You'll notice these little stars, these are actually knee controls, and you can do that to rotate your knees up and about and all around. For the purposes of a simple walk cycle, we'll probably not need to really change the location of where those are at, and we'll just move them forward for the time being. So there we go. We've got our left foot back and our right foot forward. Now that's kind of weird looking, isn't it? Well, yeah, when you're walking, your feet don't stay planted in one particular location. So When it comes down to it, we want to change how the foot is positioned. This control is usually set as roll, and you'll see it over here. There's a control called foot roll, and we're going to want to move that so that with your right foot moving forward, it's your heel that's touching down on the ground, and then for the left foot, we want the toes being the one thing that's touching the ground. And you can see here that it pushes forward a bit and it pushes backward a bit. So we'll want to also make sure that we make adjustments to the foot position as well to make sure that this is as natural looking as possible. Now let's move on up to the torso. With the torso, what you're going to find is that your torso actually rotates opposite of what your pelvis does. And the reason it does that is to make sure that it counterbalances all of the weight that's being shifted from your legs. So whenever you're walking, your body actually does do this kind of twisting motion, and you're going to want to move these torso controls in a way so that the body is tilting in the opposite direction of what the pelvis is, or at least the upper torso is. And then what we'll also do is go ahead and move our arm controls. Remember that when you're walking, your arms actually move opposite of what your legs do. Once again, this has to do with the counterbalance that is being made to ensure that your body doesn't just topple over as you're walking. So we're going to make a few adjustments here. We're going to move our arms forward. And how far you want to move your arms really just depends on what kind of walk you want to make. You can make it extremely exaggerated, or you can make it a little less so, depending on your particular visual needs. What I also like to do is with the hands, I like to move them a little bit as well, because this creates a very interesting looking action as the character's walking. And so we've got a pretty decent pose right here. I'm really not going to mess with the fingers. That's a lot of minor details that can always be worked out later. Shoulder wise, what I like to do is I like to have the shoulders kind of bob up as the body's going down and then pull back down as the body's going up. So what we'll do is we'll just raise it slightly here at this point. And of course we're going to want to play with the neck so that our character is looking forward and not to the side like that. After all, when you're walking, you usually aren't looking side. You're not rotating your head side to side as you're walking. You're looking straight forward. So this looks pretty good. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and grab all of our keys here. I won't grab the master control, but I'll grab everything else. And what we're going to do is we're going to set the keys. For Maya, that would be the letter S, the S key. Or you can do it under, let's see here, animation, and then key, set key. I have mine set to prompt, mostly because I like to make sure I can set my keys manually like that. As for Blender, I'm not quite sure how that works, but this is how it works for Maya. It may be similar for 3ds Max, I'm not quite sure. Anyways, that looks really good, so why don't we go ahead and move on to mid-gait. Now what that requires is that we bring our foot back to its center position. Our right foot is going to be moving back. Our left foot is going to be moving forward. We'll also want to move our body back up. I'm going to actually put it back at its regular height here. And your right foot is actually going to start rolling a little bit because it is starting to push up back onto the body. We'll move the body up, but we also want to move the body a little bit to the side because we want the center of mass to kind of be in line with where the foot is. So if we go to the front view here, we really do want to kind of even out the distribution of weight so that most of it is just on top of the foot. As for the pelvis, we'll want to change that as well. It's no longer rotated in any particular order. It's going to be pretty stagnant here, but it will rotate a little bit in the z-axis here. And the reason why is because your pelvis does push down on your foot to kind of help provide the body more leverage. And as you can see, that does cause more of a bend here. So we'll want to adjust our body control accordingly so that it stays a little bit straight. We want a little bit of bending, but not too much. Now, as for this foot, we'll want to change the foot roll down to 0, and we'll want to lift it up. We may want to rotate it a little bit as well so that it is actually being lifted up and creating a nice little arcing motion. We'll move it a little bit to the side too, as it'll tend to swing underneath the body. And that's pretty good right now. We'll want to bring, as for the torso, we'll want to bring everything kind of back to what it was originally. We'll do that right now. We'll grab all of these controls and we're going to go into our rotations and turn that back to 0. But we do want to play a little bit more than just this because it's a little static. So what we'll do is to kind of play around with the whole shifting of the body weight under the foot. We'll want to tilt the torso a little bit back over this way, but at the same time tilt it back around. So it kind of creates this little so we kind of get an S sort of going here in terms of this nice flowing arc. That's pretty good for the torso, and now for the arms, they're going to be midway through, but it's important to note that the arm moving back should still have a little bit of a curve here, and we'll want to keep the wrist curved forward as well because we want to get a sense of that inertia that's being pulled through as it's being pulled back here. And as for the right arm, we're going to move this forward. We're going to move our elbow forward a little bit too, but we're going to also keep the wrist moving back because this is going to look pretty good because it'll have some nice inertial, it'll create this kind of inertial illusion. We're going to move the arms down, or not the arms, the shoulders down. And that should do us pretty well here. So we'll go ahead and take all of our controls here, and we're going to set our keys. And what we'll do is we'll set it for, say, 6. That way, as we go by, once we have a full-on cycle, it should be like just a second per like a half second per step, and it should look pretty nice. So we can actually see how things are going as we scrub through the timeline. It's looking pretty good. The rest of the tutorial here is going to be pretty simple, as it's just going to be doing what we've done in opposite. So we'll go through and do everything we did for our first part of the gait here, only in reverse, and we'll do that at frame 12 here. So we're gonna pull our feet back, our leg back. We're going to move our body back down. We'll actually even put it down to the 0 mark here. Even pull it down here. Make sure we rotate our pelvis. We want to make sure the body is now back centered. Move it so that the pelvis is now tilted left forward and right back. Move our foot back kind of to the starting position. Move it forward. Run a roll here. Do the same. We'll do the kind of the reverse here. Pull it back, push forward. Just pull down the body just a tad bit. We'll re-zero our torso and neck controls, and then we will rotate them opposite of the pelvis because we want to make sure that our skeleton is creating the proper counterweight for his leg motions. Move the head forward. Move our arm forward as well. At this point, you'll want the wrist to snap forward. And then we'll do the same back. Moving it all the way back. And tilting the hand back as well. There we go. Awesome. Then we'll grab all of our keys, or not keys, our controls, and then set that to key 12. And now we're going to move forward again, this time to key 18. And we're going to do the mid gait once again. Only this time it'll be in reverse of what we did last time. A little bit of foot roll on our left foot here. We want to recenter our body and then move it accordingly over the foot that is providing liftoff. Tilt the pelvis. May want to move the body a little bit forward on this one. May pull back on the. I'm going to pull back a little on the foot roll. Pull off foot roll on this. We'll want to move it up, rotate it just a tad bit, and then move it to the side so that this foot is more counterbalanced. We'll reset our rotations on the torso and neck. I don't think I got the neck on that one, unfortunately, but that's okay. And then we will want to make some minor adjustments here to the torso. Have it so it is counter, so that that the torso is trying to put most of its weight down on the foot here. So that should be good. And then we'll want to move our arm back. We'll keep the wrist kind of angled in that way. Move our left arm forward, pulling the elbow forward, but having the wrist move back. All right. We'll key this for 18. I did notice that I did leave the shoulders on its downward spin. We'll fix that. We'll go back to frame 12, and what we'll do is we'll pull back up on these shoulders. I apologize for not catching that earlier, guys. All right. So we're almost done. Awesome. The only thing that's left is to get our key pose back to where we started. And that would be where the right foot is forward and the left foot's back, and the rest of the body is contorted in the proper ways. Now, what's fortunate about 3D animation is we can just set that keyframe like we had before. There's a problem with this particular rig that I've noticed is usually you should be allowed to copy these keyframes out and then paste it forward into the keyframe that you want it in. So we copy it from 1 and put it to 24, but it's going to have an interesting issue here. Yeah, that is not what our original keyframes were. I don't know what it is about this particular rig. It happens with Dimple and Crimson as well, my other 2 character rigs. I'm not sure what it is about it. I can always copy these arm controls and certain groupings of them and not have an issue whatsoever. But for whatever reason, I just have this weird issue with grabbing the whole thing as a whole. But there's a way around that, fortunately. What we can do is select all of our keys, go straight back to keyframe 1, and then you can key and do a prompt set for your key. And what we'll do is we'll just key this for now 24. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull back on the timeline so we only look at 23 frames, not 24. The reason why is because that way you don't have 2 frames with the same exact key. And then we'll go ahead and play this. Now that's pretty simple. And you got yourself a nice, simple walking animation. Now you'll want to play with this, of course, and add a little bit of a little more details. You may want to also offset certain actions so they're not all moving in the exact same timing. But overall, this provides you with a pretty, basic and simple walk cycle that isn't too half bad. And that's about it. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned a little something, and I'll see you in the next video.